I think that a president has to be essentially a leader, and that means that you are willing to not only make decisions when you're called upon to do so, but you're also willing to recognize when you have to take a step back and know that other people may have better ideas than you.
I think they need to be well spoken, they need to be motivated, they have to have a good temper, they have to be able to understand different perspectives and not, only follow what they believe. I think they have to be determined and also have a good sense of humor.
So a president definitely needs to be charismatic, inspirational, and be able to take charge when necessary. I think that too many times presidents oftentimes find themselves in situations where they don't know how to be a leader. And I definitely think that that is the main characteristics a president needs in order to be successful.
I think a good president needs to be determined, and I think they also need to be realistic. So I think that like a lot of the values that I grew up with, like in a Jewish household, I think would be good values to put in the White House. Sort of like this idea that you see a problem through to the end, and you don't give up on it, and nothing's too hard to overcome, and also just being realistic about your goals and knowing that like you can achieve them in the either 4 years or 8 years that you're in office.
Yeah, I come from a country where there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of mismanagement in politics, and something I've learned is that you need someone that's loyal and true and that's very educated to be a president. I think they would agree with me, especially in light of like President Obama making a lot of promises to the Pakistani community that he didn't deliver. I think we should be more cautious of the Pakistani people's needs and wants, as well as America's, and find a balance in between them as opposed to enforcing their way and style on the country.
Person, I'm obviously very concerned about the state of Israel, and I would definitely want a president who is concerned about Israel too. Somebody who really cares about the connection between Israel and America, and who is concerned with maintaining that connection and establishing it like for years to come. And any president who's not in support of the state of Israel, I would not want on there. Obviously, that is the homeland, and that is something that I want to be around for generations.
Yeah, I think that like the Judaism that I grew up with is very entrenched in these values, and I think just like understanding that there are values, there are morals, and that you have the strong foundation to lead like the American people and to be the face of the American nation. I think those are values that like all Jewish people hold, and they would be important values to see in the American president. I also would like to see a president that is very pro-Israel and is a supporter of the U.S.-Israel relationship, relationship, because it's a reciprocal relationship in that we give to Israel and they give to us. So I think that relationship is really important to stay strong, and I think it's really important that a president maintain that relationship, because it's not just one way, it's two-way, and the American people need Israel just as much as Israel needs America.
So I'm an Asian American, and I think that my political beliefs are actually supported by my Filipino heritage as an Asian American. I think that as an Asian American, I grew up with certain values such as, being the fact that, living in America, if you work hard, you can go somewhere with your life, and I think that just those values, along with, traditional family values that I was brought up with, and, financial responsibility, I think that those are something that I care about as an Asian American, and I think that that is something I definitely look for when I think about who I'm going to vote for as president of the United States. I think that a lot of Asian Americans definitely feel the same way, but they probably have different, it really just depends on the way that you were brought up. I think that among the Asian American community specifically, not all Asian Americans think the same thing about every issue. So it really just depends on how you were brought up, what issues your family thought were important to raise you on, and I think that that is why people of my community feel
Latino. I would like to see a president who is charismatic, hardworking, determined, and family-oriented. As you know, Latinos are very emotional and outgoing, and I think that if they see a candidate who's very charismatic, they'll be able to kind of see a match between themselves. Also, a lot of the times, Latinos come to the United States as immigrants, and they're very hardworking and determined. So I think that if they see a presidential candidate who has these values too, they'll be able to see a resemblance between their life story, their background, and their coming to the United States. I'm from Colombia, and I guess I came here too when I was young. I consider myself an immigrant, I guess, with my parents. And there are 50 million Latinos right now in the United States, and I think something that's very important for the entire Latino population is some sort of immigration reform. Something needs to be done to be able to legalize and fix the immigration situation of all these families in the United States. And I feel like not a lot is being done right now, and there's a lot of more work to be done. A lot of the times, for example, the Cuban population tends to vote more conservatively, more Republican, but then you have the Mexican or the Dominican or the Puerto Rican population that a lot of the time votes more liberally towards the Democrats. So I think that immigration reform is obviously something that both parties have to work very hard on to try and make some progressive agenda.
The qualities that I believe determine who I would choose for president are the fact that I'm a woman, the fact that I'm a person of color, the fact that I'm middle class. And the fact that also, like, people in my family, I think certain policies would benefit them as well, more than me. Like, I am very, very concerned with issues concerning the poor. So I think that my background, because I'm multicultural, like my parents aren't from here, my parents are immigrants, I'm a first generation American, and that I think has a lot of impact on the type of decisions I make in evaluating a potential president. And I think other people who are like me do the same thing. Like, I feel like most people like me who are first generation Americans tend to lean more to the left.
To the country specifically, everyone hopes to see the president as the most powerful man of the free world. That's what we'd like to believe. Whether or not that's still true, I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I am a citizen of the United States. That would be nice. I mean, it's obviously a figure of power, of hope for the future generations and change.
So the president is not only the leader of the United States, he is also the leader of the free world. So I think it's very disappointing when presidents, do not emulate this at all. We are America, and we need to start, leading the world because we are the champions of freedom and democracy. I think that the president is the ultimate figurehead of our country, and when he does not represent us well in front of the international community, we are not being represented well as a country as a whole.
I think that the American president is the leader of the free world, and they represent all of every American's interests. So I think that they they have many hats, and they wear them almost all the time. They're constantly switching on and off as a domestic leader and also a leader on the international stage. So they're sort of vested in the interests of the American people, but also in the American interests abroad.
The U.S. president, the first thing I think of is obviously the White House, but a lot of the times people consider the president of the United States to be kind of the leader of democracy around the world, of the patrol of freedom and equality around the world. And I don't think necessarily that the U.S. president should be the one to kind of dictate what's right and wrong, but I think a lot of the times that is kind of the stereotype that comes across with being the U.S. president.
So in terms of what the American presidency means to the entire country, I would say that the president, like the symbol of the president, he's one, like, most importantly, the leader of the free world, and so people look to him for guidance. They look to him to make decisions where nobody else exists to make decisions. And I think because America is kind of based on this sort of like very nationalistic pride, that the president is like the embodiment of that. He's like the physical, tangible entity that everybody looks to, and that everybody in this country expects people around the world to look to. And that's what I think about the presidency.